at the bottom of the ocean. I'm at the bottom of the sea. At the bottom of the ocean. Don't know if I'll make it back home.
Well, the final day of week number 3 for the Unified Premier League is upon us here in our fall season, and we've got a single matchup tonight on a very special map, but we'll get to that a bit later. My name is Stikula. I'm here with Torbeck. I'm going to be really intrigued to see how this match plays out. Number 1, because of the map. Number 2, because my homeboy is playing here for Oblivion.
Well, that's exciting to see your homeboy playing here. But like you said, I think that the map is the main draw. I haven't actually had an opportunity to cast this map yet, and it will be Bank, which is very exciting indeed here. I think we're all looking forward to it behind the scenes because for me, at least, this will be, genuinely the first time that I've seen it since a rework. So I'm very curious to see just how it plays out, what angles teams are taking on it. I feel like it's such a new addition that it really has thrown some things into a little bit of confusion. I mean, Chalet, if we remember correctly, back in the day when it was reworked, back in the day, it was a couple months ago, but when it was reworked, it was sort of the kiss of death stick. No teams wanted to really touch it. So I appreciate seeing these teams taking on the challenge of Bank here for us tonight.
Yeah, and why don't we go ahead and roll over to our roster graphic while we talk a little bit more about the map veto and all of that stuff. From what I hear on Oblivion, this is a huge win for them. Getting this onto Bank, they said it was a crucial mistake by Emergence, and they told me, specifically Momo, aka Ratboy Wonder, let me know ahead of the game that this is going to be a quick one. And he said it's by far the easiest map for them to come up with strats with on the fly. Which seems to me like the idea. We do have a quick clarification there on the roster. On the Oblivion side, it is not X-Stars. He has been dropped from the roster, according to a tweet put out earlier, and he is actually being replaced by Reflect, who also goes by Evan. And if you've seen him, if you know of him, it's either from his ranked moments or from his endeavors in collegiate. I believe he played for a little while on Brown University. We might have some clarification on that one later if I'm incorrect, but just know that he's been playing in ranked. He's got the gun skill to back it up, and just like Momo, Reflect is also very much so a rat. Over on the Emergence side, Chief, should be one player at least that we're pretty familiar with here in Sonafin. You and I actually casted Sonafin last night on my channel in his
We did.
match up against UGA.
Yeah, he was playing for UNT and he was doing really well in that match. He had a couple of really strong streaks and honestly was just kind of the difference maker in a lot of those matchups that we saw. So, whether or not, I mean, I'm assuming he's going to bring that same energy tonight, though perhaps some of the players that he's facing here will be more perhaps on his level in terms of their overall skill. So, a little bit more of a challenge here for him, surely. Both of these teams, as it stands so far, are kind of upper table, right? Early on in the season, obviously, to be talking too much about standings, but I believe they are second and fourth, respectively. So, not bad at all. A higher tier matchup here, I would say, out of the UPL teams. So, I expect this one to be quite fierce. However, I mean, you've introduced this information here about them having these, maybe being able to come up with strats on the fly on Bank and stuff like that. So, I am genuinely curious if that's going to have some sort of impact here because it is, untrod ground.
Yeah, for sure. And Emergence in their last week's matchup, it actually left Chief like kind of heartbroken. He really wanted them to win against Surf, and they could really put it together. Their earlier match they played in the first week was versus Team Arcane, which
Hmm.
has been a team that's been hard to put a real quantity on. We haven't really heard of a lot of their players. We haven't seen them really perform. I mean, even if you think about some of the other lower level teams, Team Aura, Team Gusick, um, even I Eat Bees, who played just the most atrocious game yesterday, the SFCL production staff team. We all know at least some of the players, so we can make inferences on how they're going to play. Emergence took the victory against Arcane 7-2. You look at Oblivion, they've just been kind of walking around and having some good victories. They played Overture Gaming, which is actually one of the more solid teams in the league. That was a 7-4 victory. And then just in the previous play week, they took a 7-0 victory against GDK, which I believe is Proxy's team. And it wasn't a forfeit, at least according to what the schedule is telling me. So 7-0 result, that is something to say. Why don't we go ahead and jump into the matchup for our back?
Yeah, it does look like we're ready to get going here, so we're good to send it in, and we'll take a look and see how this bank develops. Obviously, like we've been saying, it's a new world out here, so the ban phase could be a little bit interesting here as well. Maybe some bans that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see, though. I imagine a few old reliables will probably be stuck here, particularly Thatcher. I think will still be banned. You still don't want those EMP grenades in play. I am curious to see what else goes. I imagine Valkyrie goes here too, Stick. I'd be very surprised to see that particular defensive operator left on the board. Bank is a big map, right? So there's a lot of ground to cover. There's a lot of space that needs to be watched, but it is worth pointing out that some of those spaces are quite wide. When you think kind of the main lobby or whatever, you maybe don't need as much intel to cover it as you think you do, at least on the initial blush. Interesting to see Jackal get removed right there. I think that's a wise choice, considering that this map can be quite roamer friendly.
Oh yeah, Jackal is really, this is probably one of his higher ban rate maps, just because having his Inox working against you when you're on that extension, most especially when it gives context to a basement realm, it's incredibly frustrating. There is plenty of ways that you can play that top floor realm to a very strong degree, but when you're thinking about that basement defense, you always want to eventually concede the control. You're not trying to hold that until you die. You want to rotate back. You want to try to reinforce the objective after you've wasted some drones. Maybe you've got some utility away as well.
Yeah, very true. Mira getting taken out here at the tail end. I don't necessarily disagree with these bans. Kaid removal makes sense when you consider that there's some hatch play to be had here. And I do also think that the Mira ban makes sense. That does leave Valkyrie in the mix here, though, if the defender's 2C user, which, I mean, she's incredibly strong operator. I'd almost be thinking that they're going to do themselves a little bit of a disservice if they don't rank her. But it looks like Emergence is just going to push forward with what they have here set before us. Potential 6-pick, perhaps, coming down. I don't know. I don't see it necessarily happening. Yeah, there is the potential swap off of Echo and onto Goyo. So really quite a blind composition, to be honest with you here, Sticula. Not a lot of intel gathering on the side of the defenders.
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the first round and actually see some of that utility. They're going to try to maybe substitute that out by bringing the bulletproof camera on Warrior. And it's actually a very surprising fact that we go to Tellers and Archives as the first defense.
Yeah.
Maybe this is Emergence trying to, sneak it in and kind of surprise Oblivion, put them onto an objective that they're not going to be fully prepared for. The one thing that I'll say is I don't entirely believe that it's going to be a huge surprise or a surprise that has enough, wow factor that it really is going to shake up the boys on Oblivion, just because this site in particular, without just an absolute excellent vertical extension up above, it's hard to get a lot of wins for your team on this site. Another quick note about some of the members in this lineup on Emergence. You've got two members formerly out of the University of Georgia, that being Juan DeSwan and Perplex, which is actually kind of a curious note that, Son of Finn on University of North Texas just played the other UGA team last night. And then my other point was going to be the fact that you've got Red X on Oblivion. He is actually a former Challenger League player.
Interesting. So, I mean, that's some serious talent there then, but it's interesting you mentioned the verticality, and they have really left this vertical super undefended. I mean, look at the position of Momo already taking that top floor. Talon with a brief amount of contest here, already backing down the stairs, because honestly, it just can't hold up there by himself. Very little utility has been invested up there, and on top of that, the fact that they have no real intel op here has also hamstringed them just a little bit, because they have absolutely no one who can really tell them what's going on this top deck. So they're relying a lot on the idea that the enemy is going to come to them, but this is a tight sight, Stick, with a really good vertical angles. As you can see, Evan's just going to go ahead and start opening things up here, and I mean they've just completely seeded this to start things off. A good kill there onto Momo, but still it's an unfavorable position for the defense.
Yeah, I think, though, Emergence do have kind of the right idea with this Mute's position. He's trying to find some area that doesn't have susceptibility in terms of a soft floor up above it, and the elevator's hallway can definitely provide that. Gives you a bit of extra capability when it comes to forcing, the attackers to kind of slow down their push, maybe for a Teller's execute, for example, there. And honestly, it's hard to chalk this site pick as, a bad decision for Emergence when it's wasted a considerable amount of time for Oblivion. and they really need to kind of leverage their entry potential to get the pick back here. Nitro will be wasted. It's odd that they haven't yet opened up this wall between loan office and elevators, which feel like that would provide the perfect pressure against the Mute.
They've actually done a really good job of trying to take sort of the locus of the fight off of the soft areas. They're basically not even fighting on the site, right? And you got to appreciate that. But Private Donut, this is a dangerous position for an attacker to be coming from here. Hopefully they can watch it. Evan will finally secure that vertical kill. That Son of Finn down. Now the plant is being slammed down by Private Donut. Now we see the true measure of this defense coming out here.
Well, despite their efforts to stall out the clock and to waste the time of Oblivion, eventually OB realized that, hey, you know, if all the defenders are off the site and we've got full vertical, we can just go in, get the plant down, and use that to our advantage. Flashbang sent out into bot square. Warrior stunned off the back of the effects. Donut close up at the windows will send yet another flashbang, now boggling his attention over towards the bottom square door. Wow, what a shot out of Donut there. Talent taken down for Red's second kill. The additional pickup on the Iana, and Donut to finish it off. Oblivion, despite coming up against a very formidable strategy, as soon as they realize, you know, we can just hit the site, it's like the defense crumbles.
Yeah, I mean, that's the danger, right? That's the gamble that you take when you play sort of an offsite defense like that, is it doesn't take a particular, I mean, you know, it's a pretty wise move to just push straight onto the site, right? Just engage immediately in the place that has to be defended. And you saw how effective that was in context, because really, Oblivion, when they took the site like that, they turned the defense back on Emergence. It was almost like Emergence were attackers there at the tail end, trying to force their way in. It was a lot of territory seeded, and I don't necessarily know that it was seated in the right place, but at the same point in time, I'm willing to give Emergence, you know, credit for trying what I think was at least an interesting setup, certainly something different and not necessarily what I expected to see starting us off here on Bank. Valkyrie now in the lineup, so they are gonna bring some intel ops this time. Both actually Valkyrie and Pulse will both be making an appearance. They're doing the other first floor site. This is a much wider site than what we saw over there in Tellers and Archives. This requires perhaps a little bit of a different style of defense. This is one of the most, I feel like, to me at least, this is one of the most awkward sites. Like, I never know how to defend this properly.
Yeah, it requires a lot of thinking in how you defend this. The good thing about the objective is you don't have that hatch right in the middle of the objective anymore. There still is the hatch in the corner. So you do have the possibility of, you know, that getting open. That creates a sight line. There's also, I think, some changes that have come to the amount of vertical destructibility. It's more focused on kind of the south portion of the objective now, which never really was a big player to see, not a big player, a big place to see players hanging out in, just because you've got that back alley window that provides a good angle. Attackers kind of will bait there sometimes and try to see if you push into them. Again, Oblivion gonna begin with that vertical control take, try to pressure the defense out, and then work to get the vertical.
It's interesting how little kind of vertical contest has really come out of Emergent. I mean, they do have bodies in the area, right? But it's not anything I would say super serious. Looks like one individual up there, I want to say, yeah, I was going to say, it does look a bit like Warrior, maybe, who is topped up there. Yeah, it is. So the Mozzie, kind of the first line of defense here, trying to use the cover of the flag, but I mean, just getting sectioned off real quick, and that's going to be quite an easy kill there for Momo. I don't think he suffered too much to get that one. A difficult spot for Warrior to be in, and perhaps one that he should have withdrawn from a little bit faster. I actually really appreciate the placement of that Argus cam there by Pops, and I appreciate this droning too, just making sure that there's nobody quite kind of waiting back here and getting a pretty good look there, that there is at least one defender that they will have to take into account.
Oblivion are being very patient with the way that they kind of make this transition into the next step of the assault. Perplex securing chance piece of information onto one of the Oblivion attackers up above, and Momo is going to vault the railing as a defender right on the other side. Castle is quite occupied looking at the vertical. Momo steps in, and Talon's reaction is just a little bit too slow. Bodying the second kill now for the Ash. Red with one on a Perplex. Momo traded out. Won't see a third kill pop up in this round, but Emergence still feeling quite under the pump given the circumstance. Donaphin gonna try to play tucked up. Hatch still reinforced, never got open by the Hibana. What is a little bit of a curious choice of hard breaching deployment. Swan to Swan waiting at bottom main, seeing if maybe one of these Oblivion attackers is going to fall victim to the sightline, and indeed they will, but now they should recognize that Son of Finn is solo on the objective, try to get that pressure working forward. Juan Deswan taking some bullets from the player over by Archives, and they've also got somebody coming in from the West Tellers area as well to try to put that pinch into effect right onto the mute. He's playing from behind the cover, and he does hear the audio cue that Donut gives away. He has 15 seconds. Clearing this mute out is not going to be easy, but Red will do it perfectly. Juan Deswan shut down, and now Son of Finn cannot play guerrilla warfare as Oblivion step up to 2 attack wins.
Well, I thought for a second they might be able to put that one back together, but unfortunately, Son of Finn, I think, just exposed himself a little bit too much right there. Not really, to be fair, a lot of choice in that scenario, because I think he was well aware that the plant was inbound no matter what he did right there. Still, an unfortunate loss. Neither of those first floor sites were very good for Emergence, and not necessarily because they for lack of effort, just I feel like they just weren't really able to ever find what they needed to find on the defense, and Oblivion just sort of picked it apart, got a lot of early kills right there, and then they snowballed that into those difficult ending scenarios. Going down to Locker CCTV is a good call. I do wonder if they should have maybe honestly started here. Really, you know, this is the site that I think got some of the most restructuring overall, right? When they went into it and they redid the map, it does feel a little bit different now. It's still, I think, a very strong defensive site, but it behooves you again to play the verticality, which is something that I think Emergence has in general been a little reluctant to do.
Yeah, in general for Bank, what I would say is it feels like the sites themselves haven't really changed, but almost all of the buffer rooms have seen, you know, various different effects to them. If you're talking about just purely on this bottom floor, inside server, you've got a widening out of that kind of section behind the server rack where players will sometimes, you'll see maybe a warden sets up with a deployable shield. It's much harder to successfully just make a quick rotate back through that door into securities because it's a huge open space where attackers can pinch you. Over in the vault, we've actually seen a hatch added in the gold vault. There's less of those bars, and in general, bars are just gone on the map now because there's no reason. The bars just, they give you trouble. You can't shoot through them, and nobody wants to have their kill stolen because their bullets hit some metal beam.
Hey, some of us like hiding behind those bars, okay? You gotta get all the cover you can. Perplexed, by the way, getting a good kill on Momo. No cover to be found there. Momo has unfortunately been, I mean, he is the entry fragger, so you would expect perhaps him to be in the hot seat. I think that's the second round now where he's been an earlier kill, but he did secure first kill last time, so a little bit of karmic rebalancing right there. Red with the Gemini clone, and again, a bit of a tighter defense here. They're sort of marshaling their resources around the site. They have 3, make it actually 4 players down here, including, interestingly enough, Perplexed on the Vigil. That's an interesting placement for the Vigil right there. I don't necessarily know that I would have kept him so close to Roost, but at the same point in time, a little bit of a gunfight there from Warrior, which Warrior will win with relative ease. At the same point in time, you can almost use him as kind of a secret reserve. It's not like he'll be particularly easy to drone out from that spot.
Rough start here for Oblivion, but you'll remember in the first round on the Tellers attack, it did look kind of similar where they faced some casualties taking map control. They were down in this 3 versus 5, and then they were able to make kills come back to their roster. You don't have frag grenades from the sledge, so you're going to be a little bit more kind of leaning on Red X to put some of those into effect. They'll rotate down. Not a lot of pressure inside of servers proper. Talon waiting beneath the hatch. Oblivion biding their time, seeing what cards they've still got left in this hand. It seems as though an A execute is on the way. Pin pulled out of the grenade. It'll be launched in, ostensibly to clear out one of the bulletproof cameras from Talon. Pretty common spot to see one. You don't want to have to deal with that pressure. And now ADS destroyed by Private Donut. And get rid of those and send a flashbang into the back of Red. There's that first kill back, starting to signal maybe the chances returning to Oblivion here. And Red will put another one together. The smoke strikes Pops right in the face. Warrior able to trade out for one, pulls the pistol on Donut, and Pops is the last one left, but he gets killed on the long angle from Juan Deswan in back gold.
Yeah, the gold area was never really threatened, so they were able to keep a kind of a rotate in that general space, or like a roamer in that general space, almost kind of like I said, that the reserve that they could bring out in that dangerous situation. It ended up being very valuable indeed to have someone back there. But in general, I mean, I think it was not bad the way that Oblivion managed to even that back up there. Stick, unfortunately, it was just a matter of emergence. I think just having the better angles, especially on those earlier gunfights. They caught him kind of out of position or in places that I don't think they necessarily expected defenders to be. And they really punished them for kind of their, not, I wouldn't necessarily call it hubris, but for thinking that maybe they could take a little bit more of the map for free like they had done in previous rounds. But, you got a good gunfight from Warrior in there too. Again, that was a perfect example though, kind of a very aggressive movement down those stairs as if they almost didn't expect someone to be playing in that position. So they're going to go back up here to the larger area again. And I just don't know. What do you think of the state of kind of the second floor here nowadays, Stick?
It still faces some issues that it saw in the past. The thing that I have a problem with most especially is, if you're thinking about all objectives in Rainbow Six as far as the comp pool goes, sites that have windows directly attached to an objective are very slim. The ones that come to mind would immediately be, of course, Cocktail Bar, over on Cafe Dostoevsky. I think maybe you could sneak mining into that conversation, but people don't play in mining, so it's not a problem, and people just don't play mining, the objective, period, really. Like, it's nothing played. Let's see, over on, nothing on Villa, as far as I'm thinking there. Clubhouse does have a few, but I just think it's the way that you're able to repel that makes this a lot more dangerous, and it almost kind of sequesters you into having somebody require in main lobby to be able to challenge that repel, because if the attackers realize this, that there's nobody in main lobby trying to peek you, they're going to shoot all the windows open, they're going to break any utility that's stopping your hard breach, and it's very difficult to come back from a point like that.
Very true, and I think you've highlighted probably some very good reasons why we saw Emergence not necessarily committing heavily to the vertical play up there either, like on this site and on the previous one that they did on the first floor. It's really hard for someone to hold it. Now, I think you have to make the effort? Yeah, I kind of lean towards the idea that you have to make the effort, but at the same point in time, I can totally understand the logic of what you kind of just laid out for us right there, which is, it's very hard to hold it. You're asking kind of a difficult task of one of your team members, probably a suicidal one. Good kill by Son of Finn there, working what I assume was that absolutely nasty angle coming out of the cafeteria, and a well-deserved kill indeed for figuring that angle out. That was a sweaty one.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty rare one. I haven't seen that before in any prior matches, but my resume of casting open area in cafeteria is actually quite slim. This site does not come up really all too often, so it is refreshing to see Emergence try new things. We're always a big fan here at Unified of teams straying from the norm, and they already did that in the map veto by not giving us Clubhouse or Cafe Dostoevsky or Oregon or something like that, but even more so in the actual strategies that are being brought. I have seen some really ingenious stuff coming into the new bank, and I'm all the more willing to cast teams as they continue to introduce it to their pool. But we do have the question of the execute on the way. 4 members grouped up at bottom square from Oblivion, and they really don't have much of a mandate to get things done. They're going to try to just bum rush, it seems, into cafeteria. Flashbang, Son of Finn, totally blinded out. Seeking cover, will play behind one of the chairs. There's 3 of them still waiting on this threshold, but the kills are entirely in favor of Emergence, and it's mainly Son of Finn just championing this angle. Momo able to respond with 1, but he is enraptured by Warrior from Archives, and that will mark the tie of the game.
That's good effort there. A little bit of a pushback here from Emergence to bring it up to a 2-2. I know they're really, well-defended site from them in the sense that they kind of, I think, Oblivion got up on the top floor, right? And they had the verticality. But unlike last time, I don't think they were really able to do much with the verticality in that sense. The angles that Emergence were playing just did not require them to overly expose themselves to anyone who was playing off the top floor. Add into that, of course, that nasty angle from Son of Fin to get the first kill in there. And I think you really put Oblivion in a difficult spot. I mean, when that last push came down, it was very one-dimensional. It was very kind of unipolar. They just pushed in straight through the attempt into his hacking cafe, and that gave a lot of room to operate. I mean, you set a guy behind that who's a good gun skill player with that Alda, and I don't necessarily think that you would expect a particularly different outcome. But going back to Teller's Archives now, Stick, and this is I think a more difficult site to defend. Obviously we talked about it last time. You take the top floor relatively easily. I would expect the same thing to happen again. They need to be careful not to be kind of caught off guard with their sort of off-site defensive play like they were last time.
It might be something of like an intel question. Like, they only have one bulletproof that they're bringing because Callan is, he's been selecting barbed wire. So if the execute happens, they're already on something of a delay in being able to react to that. And one thing I just would piggyback onto the previous round is I think that they probably would have been better off, Oblivion, that being in their execute, if they had tried to push into open area, just because they had no vertical, no hard breaching on cafeteria. They were funneling through a single double doorway. And it's honestly just a situation where they set themselves up without any advantage.
Yeah, you're very correct. And I think that again, you made a point of noting the intel gap. And man, I get a little antsy, right? Maybe it's just me as a person, but I get a little bit antsy when teams kind of blind themselves. You put so much reliance on kind of one bulletproof, and I do really strongly believe, right, that Siege is a game won by good intel. You're banking on the fact that your opponents are kind of going to do what you expect them to do, right, on this particular map, which is, I mean, admittedly what Oblivion is doing right now, but Evan just absolutely shellacking what was 3 pieces of equipment invested in that doorway, by the way. That's a little depressing to watch there. That was a mute jammer, an ADS, and a Volcan, for those of you who weren't following along at home, that I think he just shredded all of them right there. Maybe one of them survived the fire. Does Volcan fire destroy gadgets? I feel like I should know that, but I actually have no idea.
No, I don't think the fire destroys the gadgets, but of course
the explosion
does. Yeah, it's hard to get an explosion.
Yeah, they're gone.
Really
Thank you, observer.
There still is at least one mute jammer kind of on that Teller's wall. Wanda Swan calls in the C4, and he might have a play in the making here. Watch the tail end of the Iana. Wanda Swan, are you blind? Are you blind? How does he not see Red X in the middle of the lobby?
There we go.
Wild situation. He does get the kill back eventually. Red X must have some kind of like Rapid's foot in his pocket or something to have survived it the first time. But Oblivion find themselves in the man deficit once again, despite the efforts of Momo to put that back in the OB camp. Warrior says, how about it? Another kill coming out of the Roni, proving that despite the recoil nerf to that weapon, it still proves to be quite mighty talent with another pickup onto Pops. Working on the bottom of the staircase, Hibana and Sledge last left.
That site does kind of start to seem to be the kiss of death right there. I just don't know about it. I guess 30 seconds now, so there's still an option here for Emergence to work this one around. Oblivion, they've got definitely a road to climb. This is looking a little bit better than their last run here. Private Donut pushed in now with the plan. Evan does actually manage to secure a kill. Evan nearly gets another one there under Perplexed. Are they going to have enough time to get the plant down? No, they're not. Private Donut is killed. The plant does go down, but he's shredded. And a much, much more solid defensive attempt here. Not the kiss of death for them this time. Unfortunately, the kiss of death for Oblivion.
Bomb diffuser disabled by defenders.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like this is really that swift game predicted by the Super Rat after all. This one's looking to be a little bit more closely contested. And while I'll say, of all things, it is bank attack, and Oblivion have already got that 2-round margin, Emergence kind of have been looking a little bit better. They've got Son of Fin on form. Warrior has been hitting his shots, and I think overall the coordination from EMG just looked better. You look at that round just then as an example with that 3-man pinch. one in archives, kind of firing for effect onto the last two around that desk area. You've got Jaeger crouching back through the rotate, and you've also got the Valkyrie as kind of that, you know, the flank watcher, almost just sort of the clean up defender out in main line.
I'm actually glad you brought that up, man, because that was tight. That was a really good pitch. I was gonna mention it myself. They just descended. It was like a pack of wolves right there, and you know, admittedly, it was a valiant effort to get in there and get the plant down, but they were just kind of standing in the open, and on such a tight quarter site too. Or what are you really going to be able to do in that scenario? I love, by the way, that placement of that Valkyrie cam from Wanda Swan. Very good one for covering kind of that top floor, giving you an idea of exactly when to expect, you know, the hard breach effort to come through. Now, this is interesting. A little bit of a different position here from Perplex. He was hunting a drone right here, but last time we saw that Vigil playing down in the basement, basically kind of secreted it away in the back of I think it was over by Vault. So seeing them playing this so off-site is a very different setup indeed.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not opposed to it so far. I've already made the point earlier. Sometimes, you know, in the new map, you have to play in a new way, and Bank, you know, a lot of people's complaints about it were that it was very stale. What a shot by Warrior, but an even better one to respond by Reflect to get the trade. As Warrior just absolutely mind-boggled. Red X there. Here comes Momo stepping down past Soda. See if he'll find the third. Talon has got the sight ready. Distracted by the drone and chased away from White. Maybe Momo's going to try for the follow-up, but the Jaeger's got him dialed in. Emergence are going to peel off the roam at an even man count.
Okay, stop playing in the elevators. So, like, that's the second attempt to play out of an elevator that has ended in disaster right there for Emergence. I think that's pretty much an indicative thing that elevators are not a place you want to be. Just stay away from them. Don't play around heavy machinery. But Son of Finn here with a really good setup as well. Wanda Swan in that same sort of flanking position we saw the Vigil in last time, and actually I think we saw Wanda Swan playing out of there last time as well to get the round-winning kill. Private Donut finally able to set up here in the meeting room and kind of get things going, start opening up those vertical hatches. Still some bodies left here for both sides, so I wouldn't say it's done or dusted either way. Private Donut there, almost like they were trying to bait out something at the last minute to see if somebody came up to kind of contest them, but none of the members of Emergence will bite on it. They are playing this very close to the vest. It's very akin to how they finished the last round, despite having those roamers out a little bit wider this time. They have tightened up immensely here on the tail end of this.
For sure. Seeing what Oblivion might gather in terms of information as they get prepared for the last few seconds in this round. Next, Kairos being used. Wanda Swan with a great nitro cell. UGA's own will launch one in for a kill against Reflect. Hard breach is going to come down. Another situation where Oblivion face the disadvantage now. Private Donut taking a few bullets coming through the wall, but he hits a shot. I don't even know how that happened. Makes it a 2 versus 2. Pops is going to drop the hatch. Tries to make a sudden play. One that works against Son of Finn. Talon last left. Flanking from elevators. Holding off for the angle. Can clearly hear the audio signature. And wins the first kill. Donut is going to stick the plant, though. They've got the red pings, and Donut can't pull off in time. Talon will secure an Emergence take advantage at the close of the first half with 4 uninterrupted round wins.
I believe that's by the absolute hairs of their chinny chin right there, though. That was very close indeed. I don't think that they had the option to pull off the plant there at the tail end because they were out of time. So I think they were kind of stuck in that situation that many a Siege player will be familiar with, where you just have to follow through with the bomb plant. But I mean, again, it was not a bad attack from Oblivion. I don't think you can necessarily say it was bad. They did what they needed to do. They kind of pushed through their checklist there. It lost some bodies in the transition through the checklist, which I think was the key problem. You know, and I appreciate the boldness of Pops kind of just dropping straight in right through the hatch, right, immediately going on to engage, no hesitation at all, manages to secure a kill on Son of Finn, and that was a hugely decisive factor. But again, it had overtones kind of, you know, of their last defense, where you saw kind of one member who was just slightly off site, right, kind of come back, push in across that again, hidden reserve, you know, that they just kind of whip out at the last second and go ahead and get in there and secure the kill. Like a shizu up your sleeve, you just throw it at them. Last thing they expect.
And I think the last thing maybe that Oblivion were expecting was such a fierce competition coming out of Emergence. Maybe their 7-0 victory versus GDK instilled them with a little bit of overconfidence R6, and they thought that this was going to be another free game as well. But clearly not. Wanda Swan, he's got the gears churning over there on the other side. And it's been a surprisingly successful game, I'll say, from the fragging potential of Talon and Warrior.
Yeah, I don't know. And you know what they say about a pride stick, right? It comes before the fall. So every once in a while, overconfidence kills is maybe a straighter way to say that. But, you know, it is bank attack, right? And so give them a little bit of a break here. They've still managed to pull 2 rounds out of it. I don't think that's necessarily anything to scoff at, right? Especially on a newer map. What's really going to be telling, I think, is how this round goes. I kind of maintain the sort of firm belief that round 6s are pretty big indicators of how things are going to go. And that's not the way they wanted to start that. Warrior picks up 2. He gets Momo and Red. And somehow Momo, in his dying breath, managed to secure the kill the opposite way. A little bit of a Western movie action for you right there. A gunfight down at the front of the bank. And unfortunately, it does not end in favor of Oblivion, but still plenty of bodies left, including the ever dangerous Alda and, of course, Private Donut on the smoke, so some delaying power there as well.
Emergence holding firm in the 4 versus 3. They have a decent portion of map control with this sort of 2-layer hold over by Server. Donut waiting behind his deployable shield. Nobody come yet to test him, but that could be on the way in the form of Talon starting to step towards bottom square. Will create a couple of rotations with the hammer. Smoke was maybe thinking about adjusting his position. I believe that Emergence have actually Z-pinged out this deployable. In fact, there's the confirmation. Oblivion are going to give this one up. Donut did not bring the deployable shield down with him, even though he didn't really face much contestion, so they won't have that extra bit of cover for the last 60 seconds in the round as Son of Finn realizes that he's got an opponent inside of lockers, but Perplex with a very well-timed play as he drops into the bank vault. Evan with a trade back. Go on to Talon. Donut down but not out. Evan on a sliver of HP, and all you need is a quick spray down from Son of Finn on the Hibana as EMG are 5-2.
What I'm just kind of curious what happened right there at the tail end. In particular, the fact that Perplex was able to get that second knock. Did they just not? Maybe the call didn't come in fast enough, because he had originally, I think he just killed someone right before that. So they must have known that Perplex was coming in from that direction. It just looked like, to me at least, Private Donut was just completely caught unaware by that and just kicked off through kind of a, not, I would say, the world's, you know, smallest angle. It wasn't like a pixel peak or anything. So a bit of a misplay right there. Going back down to the basement one more time here, Stick, too. It's interesting that they are kind of choosing to forego what Emergence was doing, which was playing kind of a rotation of sites, win or lose. Instead, they're just going to try and stick it out on what you might probably arguably the strongest site, right, in the map, I would say. Always feel maybe a little bit uncomfortable making such sweeping pronouncements, but I think it's relatively safe to say that it's quite strong. What they have to avoid this time is they have to avoid losing 2 at the start of the round like that, because I think that honestly sort of sucked the wind right out of the sails there of Oblivion's first defensive effort.
Yeah, for sure. As far as the objectives on Bank, it's hard to get solid stats on it because, you know, the only time it's being played in these leagues is you know, once or twice. Bank has the most plays in the EUL. It's been played 7 times, and Locker CCTV had a 43% defensive win percentage, which was actually second lowest overall behind CEO up on that second floor, and then Tellers and Archives in second place there as well. But the one thing that I will say about that is I am a little hesitant to apply T1 statistics to a T4 match such as this one. And Talon is really firing and having an awesome matchup. You know, coming into this one, I've heard of Warrior. I haven't really heard much out of Talon, but they are showing us that maybe this is, you know, kind of some form that could carry Emergence to a potential, you know, playoff.
Yeah, no, they very well might. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your actually very interesting point about, you know, don't want to bring too much T4 into T3. It is all a little bit different. But hello, Momo just completely caught by. He gets Talon as well. Poor Talon. I think you might have spoke his name into being right there. You spoke his death on that particular one. Just gets caught out absolutely right there in the corridor. But I was gonna say, it was a really good play by Talon. He just popped out that window. It was such an efficient kill. But then equally challenged by Momo right there, who's still unaccounted for. How are they missing this man? Warrior will bring him down eventually, but not before he's basically ripped the guts out of this entire Emergence attack. Fortunately, Son of Finn was not caught up in that murder spree on the top floor, so you still have your hard breacher in play. Otherwise, I think we'd be looking at a for sure Emergence loss. At least in this scenario, I would say that Emergence has options. They can still get the hatches open, they can still play around them, but certainly incredibly disadvantageous situation for them to be in right now.
Well, Warrior and Son of Finn are going to send it down into Vault, and it's a play that goes pretty unsuccessfully. Pops.
Bomb located by
1 for
attackers.
1 there. Warrior last alive on a 10 bomb.
Oh.
Able to gnarly. It's 1. Evan trying to step forward.
Bomb has been
The nitro cell toss. It's going to be hard to duck this one for Warrior, and he sure won't be able to. Oblivion are finally going to snap that streak of rounds that had grown to 5 in this matchup, Corbeck, and they keep Emergence off of match point.
What an ignominious end. What a like, just an ugly end to such a good bit of play there by Warrior. I almost said, I mean, I didn't want to interrupt, but I almost said, like, oh my god, if he dies to a C4, that's gonna sting. Like, just can't kill him with the gun, quickly hit him with explosives instead. Is very much how that felt, but poor Warrior there getting popped out like that at the end. Still really good play from Emergence, but again, Oblivion able to claw that one back around in the end stick. And I think a lot of that, I think almost all of that in fact was down to the fact that Momo was just unaccounted for up there on the top deck playing out like that. I still don't understand how he just was able to do that. That was such an effective bit of play, and you could even see in the chat afterwards, they were like, were you there the whole time? Like, not only did he jump out and kill 2 people, they kind of put the jack back into the box, and who was playing on Thermite? I don't remember. Was it Juan de Swan? Just kind of completely oblivious to the fact that Momo was still there, lurking like, you know, Jason from a Friday the 13th movie, ready to jump out and kill again. And he did exactly that. So a brutal round, but now actually playing the second floor site. So we'll put some of your talking points earlier, Stick, to the test here about these windows. We'll see just how effective those are and whether somebody will play out of the lobby to try and counteract those repels.
Yeah, the endeavors of Ratboy Wonder have not been foreign to the scene here in Unified. We've actually had him, I think, in like the last 2 or 3 seasons. Momo has played, you know, a couple of games. Let's see, I think last season he played on Prevail, but they like disbanded after the 3rd or 4th match. And that's been, unfortunately, the story of Momo. I don't think I've ever gotten him to cast, or I've gotten to cast him in a postseason match because his teams haven't lasted that.
That's unfortunate, but maybe this will be the time. Good kill. Yeah, Momo. He's been a star, Stick. He's really stood out, I think, on this roster. Unfortunately, he was the initial point of contact, so Warrior is able to get the trade, but Momo continuing to get good kind of early frags here. Perplex trying to cover this angle. You do see that there is the alibi waiting for them at the top of the stairs. They're well aware that that threat is there. I think it's more of a matter of how do they clear it out. Unfortunately, there's so many ADSs up there that it gives Red just plenty of time to fall back to a more adequate defensive position. There's a mute jammer up there too. This is really stuffing them here, and not a lot of that kind of window play that we talked about, Stick. They're really not endeavoring to do that at all.
No, it's more of a focus on Kanto right now, and they're going to get the wall open with relative ease.
Attackers recovered the bomb
They're
diffuser.
off that mute jammer. Warrior waiting to see if perhaps Red tries to rotate a bit preemptively. And a pretty silent round in terms of this mid phase here after that opening exchange and then the trade back onto Momo. Nothing much in the kills category until Evan pops up, finds one. Donut contributes, and that's the double kill in from the Echo. Red X realizes 4 versus 1. He wants his picks. He's going to get aggressive. He's going to challenge towards Perplex, who is busy occupied searching some of those angles below, and he's going to have a hard time predicting the fact that this defender has tucked himself up all the way at the wall, and Red X finally pops up to net it there, as OB have got 2 rounds in this half.
I will say, Stick, I think that was a bit of, well, there wasn't a lot of pinch there. I'm still trying to kind of puzzle that one around in my head and think about what Emergence was necessarily hoping to see happen in that particular scenario, because I can't. Okay, so they were trying to open up the long sight line down the hallway, right? Because I think it was Son of Finn who was on the rappel. He was outside. He was looking to cover the long hallway. There was a lot of effort to get through the utility that was blocking the destruction of that particular wall, but there was no pinch there. I mean, it was just Oblivion was entirely able to marshal all of their resources to face towards that staircase, and I kind of feel like pushing up a staircase right into the teeth of the enemy when you know that they're all looking at it, because you haven't sent anybody in any different way to make any difference whatsoever, was a bit foolhardy, to say the least. And I'm not entirely surprised that as they came up those stairs, they just kind of got absolutely shellacked on the attack. I'm curious to see if we get to that site again, whether they will do something similar, or whether they will maybe try and have somebody play off a window, whether they will maybe try and have somebody come in from the balcony side, you know, push in from over at stock, and see if they can get somebody through there. It was interesting just how one-dimensional that was. But look at the vertical play here as well that we're already seeing. They're a little bit more committed to it, it would seem, over on the Oblivion side than Emergence was.
Camera in position.
So, at the castle coming in here from Donut, which I'm always a bit partial to on this objective in particular. Emergence go early to try to put that window pressure up against the vert hold. Bit of a delayed deployment of the deployable there. I just totally bungled that one. A late placement of the deployable shield from Red X over by Long Dusk. He does get it down eventually. Get the cover. What's that?
You're inventing new words. It's good. Deployed. I like it.
Played?
Yeah. I was trying to make like a joke out of it, and I just can't think of anything fast off of my head. It sounds like deplaned is the word for.
Sounds like,
I think.
Yeah, I was thinking of like the place.
Just displaced. Is that a word? Displaced, you mean? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
oh,
displaced.
grenade. Red theirs. They were thinking about the same thing for a second there when the grenade came sailing in. Not a lot they could really do but run in that scenario. I think they probably lost their alibi as well. Which is actually a really funny statement when you say it out loud. Warrior here, he's got relatively good positioning to maybe start opening up some of that vertical again, but unfortunately the presence of Momo is lurking like a predator in the dark here. You just have to be aware of it. I don't know that they necessarily have a bead on that either, but Warrior's just happy as a clam there, tearing up the floor, trying to get maybe some angles down onto the site. Well, he's going to have the additional help of Talon here, and Momo is going to forfeit that position and fall back as Red secures the initial kill of the round at 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Bomb located by attackers.
Have to chalk this one up to a success on the extension up above so far, but the way that you win this back for Emergence is by having high level of success on the transition. Now that you've accomplished control up above, you need to excel on the rotate. Son of Finn caught lacking. Donut with a kill against Warrior. Oblivion seemed to have rediscovered that form they held in the initial 2 rounds of this game, though Talent, a marked response onto Momo. Shotgun waiting around the corner. It's actually Pops with the 1.5x optic adorning the MP5K as Emergence link up. See what they might be able to do with the little time and even fewer resources still available to them. Donut. EBN Otis, Swan is able to cut his way right through 2 into the objective. The Thermite hoping that he can finally bail Emergence out. Red X chooses not to pursue the Thermite. on the vertical, that could be a very costly decision. The one to Swan is on such little health. I don't know what Evan is looking for. There's no more players left, but that's the round in the bag for Oblivion. And they're able to take 3 in a row to tie the game and deny Emergence over time before round 10.
Defender mission success.
Well, the defense right there is the key, right? Defense is apparently winning big here on Bank today because they've had, you know, a pretty good run of it so far. Emergence, unfortunately, you know, I think you were right. I mean, they did a good job there of kind of obtaining verticality, but again, it was short of the roamer that I think messed them up. Momo just in a position where they could get a couple of early strikes in, or just a couple of not even early strikes, more annoying strikes. Yeah, the play down in the garage to take out Son of Finn is one that stands out kind of in my mind as just being almost a nuisance, right? Just enough to detract from the overall attack. And well, this is a bit of a test for Emergence here. They've got to kind of pull through. It's not, I think, a particularly pleasant place to be in to kind of get the table run back on you like this. So you have to find the fortitude within yourself to overcome this setback and push this through to the win. And I think Oblivion, if anything, is probably sitting a little bit more in the driver's seat right now. That said, if this round comes out heavily in the favor of Emergence, then I think you could safely say that Emergence will walk away with it. But if Oblivion can manage to wrench this one around, I think that could quite likely put the kibosh on Emergence. It's a very impactful round, I guess, is the easiest way to sum it up. This has the feeling of great import, to me at least.
Yeah, and round 11 almost always has that feeling of importance, but most especially in the best of one, where there's no second map, there's no decider or anything, you know, you just get the single map. And the decision was rendered coming down between Cafe Dostoevsky and Bank. Oblivion chose to try to cash in, I suppose, here in play week number 3. Talon waiting out on the vertical. I had to throw it in. I have not resorted to any Emergence or Oblivion puns. I was thinking
You've been very good. You've been very good. Very restrained. It's hard. I don't blame you at all. It's hard, but it's been a good effort on your end for sure. Talon here just going through the motions of droning. They're trying to establish that verticality again, and you know, it was worth pointing out actually that Red kind of turned that against them. I don't think they necessarily got a kill at the tail end off of the vertical play, but certainly it was interesting to see Red all the way repositioned up there on that last round. Obviously, you can't snipe down through 2 floors on this map, but the same sort of principle holds true. It does look like a little bit of a tighter defense here, though, Stick from Oblivion. They're not quite as much room, not quite as much roam. Momo, in particular, has been kept quite close to home on this one.
I guess he still is sort of ratting. He's like tucked in that corner of the vault, though. Without the hatch being open, you know, not really the most valuable play, I suppose. Maybe he's hoping that Emergence try a late play. You'll actually remember last time we were on lockers in round number 8, that's what they did. They tried to drop 2 into vault, and they encountered some opposition in that round. It was actually coming from the gun vault, and though Emergence came close in the 1 versus 1 to close that round, it never actually materialized. Red X will rotate out, showing us the changes to the map that I mentioned in that kind of server's area. Though he escaped back into CCTV, gets a little bit too occupied with looking up at the map.
Well, Perplex has managed to secure server here. Talon's just going to roll a frag down there, I think mainly to try and take out the Evil Eye. Unfortunately, does not have the impact that they intended, so they will have to contest that. Son of Finn with a beautiful kill on Evan coming down the main staircase. Momo trying to contest the backside. Oh, he just clips Son of Finn and puts him into a down state. That still doesn't help them, though, because they've got the plant down now. Perplex on a wide angle return coming on the other side. Now Pops trying to push in and hold with the other direction. The plant is already down, though, so the effectiveness of holding that angle with the Alda is incredibly limited. Private Donut and Momo pushing up, but Pops is down. Talon securing another really solid kill. Private Donut now trying to get aggressive, whips out the shotgun actually and just goes for it. Hole sends it into the room, but Talon is waiting, gets the knock. Talon gets the second one. He's down, but he still wins the gunfight against Momo, and that is technically a flawless round right there. The best way to get a flawless round there, Stick, on the technicality.
Yeah, that's a good one, but it was definitely a round that had flaws for the Oblivion side. They didn't have Momo play as aggressive, and you know, you look at the way that they played in round number 10, in round number 9, and even a little bit on their last attempt at lockers, they had Momo out in the field trying to, you know, raise hell and cause trouble. And now that he's back on the objective, he only starts to roam very late into the round. It's feels like, you know, not really the style of Siege that Oblivion had used that had garnered them that comeback. And it's just a bit shocking to me. I always get that, you know, in such an important round, like we highlighted at the start of number 11, you want to play a bit more conservative.
Yeah. It might have been what their thought process was. I mean, I do think that we saw both teams have made an effort to kind of keep someone waiting in the vault area, right? Like the trap card that they've just buried back there, but did not work out for them in that particular circumstance. It's interesting to note right there, Stick, that I felt like the post-plant situation or the post-plant play in particular from Oblivion, and I don't want to, I don't want to get too critical of anyone. It's not very fair, but especially when I don't, know enough myself, right? But in that particular scenario, I do think the post-plant play was quite poor from Oblivion. They really were struggling to figure out what to do. When you think about, it was Momo and I want to say Donut who were pushing back up the main staircase. Well, like, I don't necessarily know what the goal was there to try and maybe do something coming out from the top hatch. I don't know. It just looked very discombobulated, almost as if it had never really been discussed exactly what they would want to do in a post-plant situation on that point, which is, entirely possible, right? It is maybe a bit of an obscure defensive concept. Well, and you can already see, by the way, the battery of util that's been put up behind this wall here to deny Emergence that particular angle. That was kind of Emergence's big obsession last time, so Oblivion is making doubly sure that they waste just as much effort on it again, but a little bit of a chicanery or talents coming in from the opposite direction. And they're opening up the floor. Why not?
Yeah, Warrior better be careful if he turns his back for too long. Could always be a defender that kind of snakes their way back into that Teller's area. Now that they've gotten a lot of that main utility off of the top square walls, it's going to be probably your Thermite who steps in next. Actually, only one Heart Breacher in this competition, but on this site, for the most part, there isn't much that you have to open other than those two walls outside of the PO. Warrior tries to maybe peek against Donut, but he's the only one who takes damage on the re-engage. Neither player suffering HP loss this go-around. WandaSwan makes this huge sweeping rotate to come in safely to try to thermite that wall, and it doesn't even work. It gets killed from down by the hallway outside of kitchen. Now you're lost without a hard breacher. That's kind of the problem that you face when you don't bring somebody extra to try to get those walls open. This could be quite troubling here for the Emergence attack.
They losing their hard breacher first. Dare I say it? They now have to do things the hard way, as it were. Son of Finn there, walking along. There's the air jab down there for a little bit of added cover, and they've sort of switched out who is playing on the windows now. Warrior taking the point position here, trying to push into CEO. Will actually continue to rotate around the other side. I was just gonna say, no, you just can't step out of the doorway of supply. They've got two guns waiting for you in there. Unfortunately, Warrior does not know, and he is punished for that lack of information. Son of Finn managed to get a pick, but Evan immediately back on the trade. Perplex now putting some shots down range. Won't find anything. And if I didn't know better, Stick, I'd say we're punching our ticket to overtime as we speak.
Don't want to give Perplexed too much hassle for it as he tries to round the corner. One is prone, and Evan will punch us in. First overtime that either of these two squads have even played so far this season. And it comes at the behest of Oblivion, who are really giving this a tough fight. But, again, I have to go back to what Momo said. He said, this is a great map for us, by far the easiest for us to come up with strats on the fly. And he said, verbatim, it will be a quick game. In round number 13, it's not looking so quick.
No, it's looking like a bit of a brawl right now, a sort of drag him down, knock him out kind of fight at the moment. Clash flash there by Evan, but he will end up over on the Echo. It is interesting to me, based on kind of the conversation that we had earlier about the possibility of second sight and kind of if it's or second floor sight and whether it's good or not. It's cool to see Oblivion putting in some really sort of solid defenses on this particular point, and they're going back there, and I really don't blame them at all. This is paid off well for them so far. Emergence definitely trying to force the window play, but not being able to find any convincing targets whatsoever. And this time they kind of tried to establish more of a pinch than their last attack onto this site, but it seems very clear to me that Emergence is still kind of playing through some strategies about how the best means of taking this point is, and I don't think they've quite settled on anything yet, so we'll see how they come at it this time. I have a feeling it's going to look similar to last round, just off my gut, and the fact that I see a couple of bodies running up there in the top right corner of the screen, Son of Venom Warrior, makes me think that I might be on the right track with that.
Yeah, I did have, I would almost call it a nitpick, but it resulted in the death of a player, so I don't think it quite qualifies. You have the Buck in this composition, and if you look at the way that they have that like open wall strategy just in the what's this, like the southeast corner of CEO, they have another soft wall feeding into Janitor as well. I think if your Buck opens that, it puts a lot more pressure on the guy in Janitor, and if they had done it last round, you saw how when the time came under threat and Emergence had to swing into Janitor, there was a player in that very position who would have been, you know, susceptible or perhaps, you know, more pressured if they opened that wall. A swing from Momo. Up to 14 kills, putting in a bit of a performance so far. I'm not quite sure what our kill record is so far this season, as it looked like Warrior had his sights on Momo, or even maybe that was Donut, but failure to complete the kill for either party.
Yeah, Momo kind of remains the fly in the ointment here. He's not marked again. He's had great success in this particular area when he was unmarked last time. I can't help but feel like perhaps we're going to be seeing that again. But Private Donut there with a good sightline, sharing it down, and Momo just waiting behind a vending machine, hoping to spring to life. Vending machines lethal, Stick. They kill like 15 people a year. So we're going to add maybe a 16th to that overall annual statistic here. Though I guess Momo's the one doing it. The vending machine is just an assistant. Pops will go down though. Swan will pick that one up. Still, Momo waits, patient. Still is a statue, a terracotta warrior waiting to spring into life. Private Donut now in a bit of a different position from what we saw last time. And Evan here pushing through the supply closet, trying to get a good angle as well. Obviously, both those castle barricades are down, so that is something to keep in the back of the mind. But Oblivion taking a long time to make this final push in. But finally, Swan will get in and go for the defuse.
Here it comes, and there's no denial in from the Oblivion defense. Swan even managing to peel out with a kill against Reflect. Donut. One on to Son of Finn. Talon feeling under pressure, able to thrive in that condition. Kill onto Red X, leaving it for Momo. Time running low. Private Donut tried to hop out on Swan, who is having an absolute monster round. 22 seconds left for Momo. This one is going to be a real rough party. Not given any chances to fight his way back through to this one. And Emergence with near perfect post-plant positioning. Time will elapse on Momo. Emergence take the first victory in overtime. A win on the attack. Definitely denoted. And Momo will get 3 kills. Time had already run out. And talk about a bittersweet way to conclude round 13.
I think those might have been handed. I think that might have been a gift. I'm not entirely sure, but I have a sinking suspicion, especially the eat up that followed in chat afterwards. I think maybe indicates that was a bit of a consolation prize right there. That was an impossible situation, I think, for Mo. I genuinely would have been absolutely amazed. It was like a 7-10 split, but 1,000 times more difficult and not in a bowling alley. So it would have been quite impressive indeed if he had been able to pull that one off. It was really, like you mentioned, Sig, I do want to just note before we hop into what could potentially be, match point. It was really good post-plant positioning. Down to Talon's position. using that pillar to block the line of sight out of the little murder hole that they had carved into the wall there in CEO. Just really well done indeed. But Emergence will go down to the basement here for their potential win. They have the advantage of being on defense, which I think in general has been advantageous here on this bank map. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Emergence managed to pull this one together here at the end. Excuse me. It's a lot riding to on whether or not Oblivion can secure that kind of early clear of those top floors. I think that's been absolutely decisive for them to win these points. The other thing that I think is just in general really decisive on this point is, well, where WandaSwan is standing right now, managing to obtain server room control early on. When you think about perhaps like Perplexed and what they did last time they were attacking here, Emergence, it was so critical for them to quickly take that position. And Warrior going for a peek. That is bold as brass right there on overtime match point to try for a cheeky peeky stick. I don't know about that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Oblivion are going to give him any options. One point that I did want to mention, though, is while Momo's prediction of the game score being a quick one was incorrect, his predicted KD, he said he was going to go 8. He was going to go 0-8. Was also incorrect. And for those of you who might be wondering, within this season, for Momo to match the kill record, he would need to get 5 kills. He would need to go up to 21. The current record actually held by Phoenix over on Windstorm. A 20 bomb. I think I took the play. Perplex somehow still has problems with the bars. I don't know how it is they remove all the bars, but there's still some bars. It's kind of a... I don't know how to explain that one.
the Schrodinger's bars, they're neither here nor there. By the way, can I just say that I know it's overtime match point, I don't want to take away from the hype, but of all the maps that we've watched in a really long time, this one has the most people like killing each other, like just direct trades on kills. It's been uncanny how many times that's developed across this map. I don't know what's in the water here on Bank, but they just keep trading out. Still 3-3, very tense situation here for both of these teams. Obviously Emergence with the distinct advantage now in the positions that they can hold. Talon anchored up there at the bottom of the stairs. Momo checking every door like it may be his last, because it could very well be that. He'll push in through Archive. The hatch is open there if he chooses to use it, but that is going to be a brave and a bold drop down to server. They don't take into account WandaSwan, but thankfully it's just a Gemini. Juan hits a quick retreat there and falls back behind the corner, holds at the bottom of blue. What other options does he have? WandaSwan down and dusted, now a 2v3.
Oblivion have managed to consolidate things, moving back up into the man advantage. 3 versus 2 with less than a minute for them to coordinate and come up with some kind of plan to throw at this objective. Donut gonna use some of his hard breach to try to open a couple more angles as Momo waits just on the other side of the door frame with the G8A1. First of the Toxic Babes sent out in this contest. Son of Finn with another one still left in reserve to burn even more time. Flashbang sent in, the second babe detonates, and the third is tossed out as well. But the time, I don't think it's going to be quite enough to delay this one entirely. Grenade close on Son of Finn's position. Donut has adjusted, and he's getting the plant down successfully. They've got a red mark on the position, but they've also got coverage up above on the hatch. The plant is denied momentarily with 1 player left and only 5 seconds. Oblivion have to march forward for kills. The plant's coming down from Momo as he quickly picks it back up. Red X playing for coverage, taking so much damage. The pistol comes out, but Red X will bail out Oblivion as they show us what they can make happen on the CCTV execute and give us the full 15.
Woo! That was tight, my lord. That was difficult. That was like Death Star trench run close right there. I can't even believe they managed to pull that one off, but all credit to them, especially Red X for staying calm in that situation and winning that one out. It was impeccably played by Smoke right there. Son of Finn just anchor played to the T, using those gas grenades to buy so much time for his team and just a little bit longer than he really had to hold out there. He just couldn't make it stick. Talon as well, putting in an amazing shift right there to bring it back around. And that was a huge victory for Oblivion. I mean, not only did it obviously keep them in the game, but it's also forced Emergence over onto the attack. They could not have asked for a better gift here. Momentum in this matchstick has shifted back and forth. It's like a pendulum. I do think it's swinging in favor of Oblivion right now. That said, it's going to be Teller's Archives, and I just... Is this the sight stick? Is this where you put all your marbles? Is this where you're gonna go here of the choices that you have available to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have to be between this one and the prospective basement defense. Lockers was played 3 times in that Oblivion defense half, and it was actually won the majority of them by Emergence. Only one Lockers victory. Archives came up once in that second split, and it was the round that actually tied the game back up at 5-5. It was a victory for Oblivion. Notably, they led the entry pick, but beyond that, I really don't have much to say on the front of that round. Oblivion are going to try to maybe throw the dice, and to be honest with you, I think of the decisions for the objective, this seems like the right one.
I would agree with you. I was hoping that you would bring up the record because I was thinking that it was a little bit similar, and I think that's 100% the justification for why they picked it, because it just has been a winning site for them. Even if it's maybe, you know, theoretically not the strongest site, for them today it has been the strongest site, and they're starting off strong as well. Warrior is down, and that's a big gun to have off the field here for Emergence very early on. They will miss that buck, and they will miss the heavy hitting fire of the assault rifle here as well. Perplex rolling out now into the lobby, just looking for a defender. Doesn't really actually see anyone in the area at all, but Red is lurking not that far from there. And it feels to me like Oblivion is just kind of everywhere on this map. This is going to be a hard slog for Emergence.
And you've got a decent chunk of intel tools as well. The prox beepers from Donut. Valkyrie cameras somewhere in the field from Evan. Son of Finn. A big kill in the constantly shifting momentum of round number 15. Now that you've lost the Valkyrie, your nitro cells drop to just the one left in the hands of Pops. The Red X manages to still kind of bobble out of this elevator, but sent right back into it with ensuing pressure from Juan de Swan, but still under the enormous weight of this pinch play by Emergence. He's able to thrive. Donut gets one against Son of Finn. There's only 2 men left standing, the Thermite and the Sledge. And though 2 of these players who have been playing fantastically and are part of the big reason why this game has been as closely competitive as it has been, it's still going to be a rough one to recover from. Pops landing serious damage, taking a couple bullets, a 5.56 in return for that maneuver. As Talon starts to step his way over towards Beepers, thinks about a grenade. Puts it back in the pocket instead. Sequesters the rifle and looks for one deep inside of Archives. Juan de Swan try to make sort of an obscuring play with the smoke, and he's able to fire against one. Red X tried to walk down the stairs, but Momo, nearing 20 kills, won't make that mark in this game. Juan de Swan trying to step in, but still against 3, and the time will elapse. Oblivion! What a game by them! How ironic that Momo says it'll be quick when it goes through all 15 rounds. The first full OT game that I've had the pleasure of casting this season. And, man, did Momo and the rest of the OB boys fight for it?
They sure did. I'll be honest with you, Stick. They are lucky to have walked away with that one. I think that was close right there until the bitter end. Honestly, they were very lucky to have that come down on a defensive side for them. I think at the end, that was a huge advantage. In general, I really thought that both of those teams played spectacularly. I mean, I've waited a really long time to cast banks, so I'm glad that the first bank map that we had here is it's the first bank in UPL. Is the first bank that we had this season? I think it might be. I'm glad that it was an absolute banger to start things off. You don't get the full 15 very often, and nor do you often get the full 15 with it being so perilously close all the way to the bitter end.
Yeah, this was, yesterday we had a situation with the match where originally I think we were going to be casting Coastal versus Phantom Gaming, and that match ended up actually getting shifted off screen because the teams were not prepared to play. That one went in a very similar fashion. It was like an 8-7 overtime victory for Phantom. And, we were kind of disappointed that we didn't get to cast it because it seemed like it was really just a phenomenal match. But I'm glad that we get this one, which is definitely in a similar stead and a game that almost kind of makes up for that. And, just what a game. Crazy by Momo, 18 kills, not quite able to step up to Phoenix's record to snap that. But, there's still time left in the season for him or another player to try to improve that. And I think our historical record for UPL is actually at 24. So it's a pretty high marker to be able to reach. So, for all of you gunners, make sure that you're getting your terrorist hunts in between, your scrims and all of that and keeping yourself prepared for a chance to snatch that record. But that's all from us here at Unified tonight. I'd just like to quickly give you a bit of a recap in terms of where this puts teams in the standings. It does not push Oblivion into first place. I believe that Surf Esports still have got, round differential. Because this one goes into overtime, you only get 1 point, and it also adds 7 round losses to your record, which is not going to be very helpful. But I suppose it does kind of get equaled out by the fact that Oblivion had a 7-0 match against GDK, so it's almost like, kind of an eye for an eye. And off of that, in terms of the actual scheduling that we've got coming in, of course, UPL broadcasting every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Coming in the next week, we'll have either Aura versus Radiance or Cosmic Wolf against Phantom Gaming. But that's all from us at Unified tonight, and that's the conclusion of week number 3. I've been Sticula, my partner Korbeck, our producer Tango Mango Down, and our observer Kazrap. Until next time, we'll see you on Monday.
I noticed I drink a lot of sodas when I'm gaming. Might as well drink something that's good for me. Head over to drinkolipop.com and order your favorite flavor.